Oh, that was a long time coming. Oh, look at this place. It's all gussied up, all fancy like. All the streamers and things that are all out there. Oh, hey, Merry Christmas to you. Hey, oh, look at you go. Oh, if I thought I smelled shepherd out there. Oh, if I had known that you're all dressed up like that, I would have bathed last week when I came to port. Oh, I tell you. Oh, Merry Christmas to you. Hey, knock, knock. Interrupt him, pirate. Oh, look at you. You look mischievous, you do. Do you have the makings of a pirate in you? Huh? Do you think so? Oh, tell me this. Anybody wants to be a pirate's got to answer a question. What's a pirate's favorite letter? Arr! Oh, you'd think it'd be R, but for a pirate, it's all about the seas, it is. Oh, well, then again, don't really know. I never was good for school, and I kind of didn't really make it past kindergarten. On account I couldn't get that there alphabet thing down. After I spent 7 years at sea, they kicked me out. I guess I should introduce myself here. I'm Seamus, the pirate. You've probably seen my ship out there in the dock or the bay in the water where ships go. Yeah, so, yes. I'm here and I'm probably here for the same reason that y'all are too, huh? For the treasure. For the treasure it is for sure. Yes. Oh, I never forget the time that I saw it. Yeah. What you looking at me that for? I saw it. I know. Don't laugh at me. I saw it. I knows I saw it. I might be blind in one eye, and the other eye was infected that day because I was trying to get used to a new contact and I was scratching at it. I was tired. I'd been swimming in a pool with too much chlorine, but I saw it, I tell ya. Oh, I know I saw it. Well, it was an awesome treasure to be sure. Oh, let me tell you that. Well, you're looking at me like that again. So what's that old sea dog talking about treasure? How can you be talking about treasure and dressed up like this? Well, truth be known, it's really all I could afford at Pirate Outfitters. You know, this sort of outfit and me eye patch. I got a friend that went all out. He bought himself a shiny new hook and a wooden peg, but he paid an arm and a leg for it. Oh. But I tell you, I seen the treasure I has. You better believe it. Oh, I heard that sigh there, lassie. But I seen it. I know. And I know you're all here looking for the same thing. You probably did the same thing I did many years ago, didn't you? You followed the maps. Huh? Huh? You followed the map there, boyo. Yeah, I thought so. You followed the maps. Oh, let me tell you, I've seen maps in me day. I've seen maps that was big maps. I've seen little bitty maps. And I seen maps that was inside out and upside down, and maps that didn't even have a compass on them. I've seen maps that didn't even have those little dashy lines on them, so you didn't even know where to walk. But you know what? I figured them out. I've been through maps so difficult that their Dora and her monkey would have never survived. Yeah. But despite everything that could be different on a map, whether it was big or small, whether it's in Chinese or whatever else maps are written in, whatever it was, there was one thing that was the same. And do you know what that was? Do you know what that was?
Treasure.
Well, treasure? But how did you know that there was treasure there? X marks the spot for sure. That's right. Every pirate knows that. X marks the spot for the treasure. Be true. Now, oh, looks like someone's been playing around with these papers, but that's okay. We'll bless them anyway. So, X marks the spot for the treasure. Where the X is, you can be sure that there'll be treasure there too, huh? Right, matey? Yeah, oh, where there be X, there'll be treasure there. And I did me some digging, as every pirate should when you see an X. You know that's where you're supposed to do some digging. So I went out there and I started looking around. And, well, I should tell you first what happened before. See, this was many years ago. And it was just after that time when you have your Halloweenies and those thanks for giving guys, you know, with the buckles on their hand, weird guys. But anyways, so it was just after that I started noticing they were everywhere. I saw X's everywhere you could think of, I did. Oh, I saw them, and some were huge, and some were small, just like that. And I knew that they were important, because X always marks the spot of the treasure, right? Not only that, but what a treasure it must have been, because it wasn't just an X. These X's had mass to them. Oh, it must have been a grand treasure for sure. And being a good pirate, when I finds me an X, I got to do me some digging. But despite all these X's, and I kept seeing these things for Xmas sails, and me old ship, it needed a new sail, so I started digging especially for that, but I couldn't find treasure or a sail for me ship. So, kind of bugged me a little bit. But being a pirate, I don't gives up easy, I does not. So, I decided that I was gonna go and I was gonna be digging everywhere I could. So, I went out there and I saw them in these Walmarts. So I started digging through all these Xmas bins in the Walmarts for the treasures. And I started digging in these Toys R Us's, and I found a new iPad, but I didn't find any other treasures there. And I started digging in all these candy shops for the Xmas treasures. I dug everywhere I could see this Xmas. Even some places I'm ashamed that I was digging in there. Not that I was digging long, mind you. I was only digging there for the treasure. I was looking for that Xmas treasure. So then, I figured it out afterwards. There was something more to this Xmas. And I did me some other digging. I started looking at that there Xmas. And I realized that under that there X, there was something else. There was a Christ. There was a Christ Mass there. So I thought, ha, I figured it out. Now all I gotta do is find me this Christ there treasure. So I started going out and I started looking for this Christ treasure for sure. Because, it had Mass to it, it's gotta be a big old treasure. But when I was looking around, I kind of figured out afterwards that this isn't a treasure, it's kind of a person. So that kind of threw me for a little bit and I didn't know what to do with that. But then I figured out, hey, when a pirate finds a treasure that's too big to spend at once, what does he do with it? Huh? He buries it, that's for sure. I know you've been looting before, haven't you? So he buries it. And so if this here Christ treasure, if he had so much treasure, he must have buried it somewhere, right? Because, I mean, of course any pirate wants to bury their treasure. You don't want to put it in the bank. Pirates hate banks. Too much competition. Now, I figured I'll have to go looking for this. But I found out that it was a person from a long time ago. So it was really hard to try to figure out what this Christ there was. But I kept digging. Every good pirate keeps digging. And so I started going through and it turns out that I'm not the first one to go about digging for this guy. You see, there were these three wise guys that went out before me. Apparently they navigated by the stars to get there on some sort of camel or whatever, but by navigating by the stars, it kind of makes them like land pirates, so they're okay in me books. But they figured out where this was. I thought, oh, well that's the end of that. These guys must have got there long ago and did the looting. But I thought, I better keep digging. Well, I'm a good pirate after all. So I kept digging, and I kept looking to see what was in there. And you know what was there? These pirates, they didn't do any looting. You know what they did? They came bringing loot. Can you believe that? They didn't do any loot. They brought loot to this guy. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, what was that? And so they started looking into, well, what did they bring there? And they brought gold, and they brought frankincense. But wait, there's myrrh. This is a pirate joke. Anyways, the first one everybody knows. Everybody knows what gold is for, right? You don't have to be a pirate. Well, you know what gold is for. You don't have to be a pirate to know what gold is for. It gives you pretty teeth. It does all sorts of things. It lets you buy things. Gold is pretty, universally awesome. But then I was looking at these other their gifts. That frankincense, and the myrrh. And I started thinking, what a gift to be bringing a little kid on his birthday. Do you know what frankincense is? Do you know what that stuff is? It's like this sort of resin that comes from a tree. What you gotta do is you gotta go and you gotta cut the bark on the tree so that it bleeds the sappy goo out. And what this is, there's this whitey yellow sort of sap that gets hardened on there. And once it's all crystallized, you can take that off and you can burn it and it smells powerful good. In fact, it's so nice that they used to use that there in the temple when they was worshiping God. It says so back in that their Exodus 30 book there. So it tells us that it was so nice, but I was wondering, well, why did they bring frankincense to a little babe? And it turns out that frankincense is symbolic of his willingness to be an acceptable sacrifice to God, giving himself up. And that seemed real weird to me. So I kept looking. I started looking at what that there myrrh was for. And you know what myrrh is? Well, it's kind of gone in the same way from the tree, you know, with the cutting and the dripping and the sapping. Except for, it's not something for incense and burning and smelling pretty. Do you know what that stuff is? It's for embalming. Do you know what embalming means? Well, good, you're too young. So, it's the stuff that you preserve the dead bodies with. Embalming fluid. Now, how many of you would show up to a little babe's birthday and say, here you go, kid, with some embalming fluid, right? Would you bring some formaldehyde out to some child? I mean, what was wrong with these dear guys? They must have been way too close to the camels and shipwrecked in the desert or something. I don't know. I mean, why didn't they bring a transformer or one of them Donkey Kongs or something? They brought embalming fluid. So, I decided, I gotta know why they did that. And it turns out that this there myrrh, it's symbolic of bitterness and suffering and affliction. And right from the start, that there Christ child, he'd have a hard life. No sooner did he been born than that there scurvy pirate of a King Herod, he started going after him, trying to kill him. His whole family had to go out to Egypt just to get away. He had a hard life. In fact, at the end of it, they even killed the guy. It's unbelievable how much that guy went through. This was one strange kid for sure. Got me thinking some more. So I had to find out more about this guy. I had to find out more about this guy's life. And let me tell you, it just got more and more unbelievable the more I went along. And got even more reason to figure out where that guy was buried. Turns out at the end, he was even the king of the Jews. And I thought to myself, hey, if this guy had people bring him all these expensive gifts when he's a baby, and he was a king even before he died, well, his ransom and his tomb must have been a king of kings sort of tomb, like the jackpot of all payoffs. Their booty in there to live so happily on for ages and ages. So I thought even more, I gotta find where this guy was buried. And I kind of found out what this garden place. The only problem is he wasn't, well, he was buried, but he isn't. I don't know if that makes sense. Oh well. Anyways, they put him in the tomb. But then 3 days later, the guy rose up out of the tomb. And I was wondering, well, this is getting even weirder. I don't really get what's going on here. And then, kind of all came together that this Christ, he was buried, but he was raised up because he wasn't just some babe that some wise guys came to see. He wasn't just this guy that was a king of the Jews. This guy was actually the Son of God. To be more accurate, he was God in the flesh that came to be with us. And he lived and died so that all mankind could be redeemed from the curse of sin. That we could all be able to have a right relationship with God and be saved. That's when I really realized what that treasure was about. That's when I realized what this Xmas was all about, yeah? Yeah, I mean, talk a reason for that big X. We got access to God himself because of this here Christ. He became a sacrifice so we could go to be to God. I mean, when you think about it, we can do all things through this here Christ. And we can have new life, changed life, better life. We can have eternal lives, I tell you. And no treasure there be could ever buy you that. Nothing can buy eternal life. But this guy, he gives it. That's part of his treasure. If you're one of his, any of his children are entitled to his treasure. And he takes us all in by adoption, he does. I mean, talk about a reason for the big X. It's the spot of the greatest treasure there ever be in history. Yeah, for sure. Right? Oh, that must be why so many of these people have tried to light him up. That must be why it was so hard to try to search this out. I spent so long trying to get to the bottom of that Xmas. People have covered him up because they don't want anybody else to get part of that treasure. They want it for themselves. At least that's what I thought. And yet, they're kind of keeping you away. They don't want you to see what's under that X, and they're keeping you diverted too. They have all these blinky lights that are trying to get your attention, and they try this flash and this dazzle, and they try to distract you with frying red-nosed venison and all these other sort of weird things they talk about in this season. I mean, I've always wondered what that tastes like, but I don't know. But they get you busy shopping, and they get you busy standing in lines so that you don't do any digging. And that's where the problem lies, is that you gotta do the digging. You're not gonna find the treasure unless you look under the X and you do the digging yourself. That's how I found that treasure. That's how I knows that it's there, I does. Because I saw it myself. Now, I know I've got to be leaving now, but I want to tell you something. That if you have been looking, if you've been digging, he tells us in his word that you're going to find him if you look for him. All you got to do is keep digging. And if you keep digging, you can ask anybody else. You can go and ask the pastor here or how many other people, and they'll help you so that you can find part of that treasure and have it for you too. Aye? Merry Christmas,